Hi everyone, back with part two, chatting with Sarah from Black Mare and Ides of Gemini, and of course Black Math Horseman. Um, we obviously have a lot to talk about. We just keep talking, so I'm excited to get. So stick with us. Yay! I was just thinking, I think if we were in person, we'd be talking for a really long time. I'm finding this with quite a few people. We're just like, la, 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 la. But yeah, sorry. So you were saying,
Oh yeah,
often you feel like you're kind of playing with the Gorgon head
oh yeah.
in a lot of your,
Use that. Yeah, I think I came from the Gorgon head for a very long time. As she is angry and isolated and alone, and she is turning people to stone, right? And
Mhm,
in psycho-spiritual terms, that's when you turn to stone and you hate everyone and you can't feel
mhm.
heart anymore. And everyone becomes the enemy, or the
Yeah.
art, so to speak. Um, And then I think that when Perseus slays Medusa, that's almost when, if you see it psychospiritually, that's when a leader aspect of ourself comes in and says to our bitter inferiors who are mad at everybody, says, "You
Mhm.
can't do this anymore. This isn't working. Like you're
Yeah.
self-destructing. You're in a constant cycle of anger." And so then, Chrysaor and Pegasus are born from
Mhm.
her, because she's beheaded, right? And
Yeah.
so those are also aspects of her, right? And
Mhm.
so that's where, in the psycho-spiritual process, Chrysaor like wields a sword. He's a child with a sword, essentially. And so the sword is clarity and articulation. Like, you don't have to be vehemently angry at everybody. You need to learn how
Mhm.
to respect it, right?
Yeah.
And then Pegasus is like ascending to the cosmos and becoming a constellation, right? And so that's like the beautiful cosmic identity after you've gone through the pain and you see, oh, pain is really a process of understanding limitation, okay? Because
Mhm.
pain is always related to separation. Um,
Yeah.
and when Pegasus is born, that's ultimately the as above, so below, where
Mm.
Earth realm ascends and gets turned into a constellation. Uh,
Yeah.
you're experiencing this beautiful white purification source. White as in light, not as in white horse. White as
Yeah.
illuminating force of the darkness of stone and anger.
Yeah. Yeah. I always saw that as like, Perseus when he does behead her. I always saw that as an act of freedom.
Oh, that's
You
so
know,
forever to see that. I didn't see that
mm.
for so long.
That's how like at first I think when you like if you don't know, you're not really into the understanding, and you immediately sort of see it as a violent act, right? I think me personally, very early on, I saw that as Perseus is freeing her from
Right.
something that's, you know, I mean, she was condemned and became that Gorgoth head, and then he comes in and kind of by doing that he set her free from something she couldn't get herself free from, so yeah, and it's I always felt Medusa. I've always had a thing with it, always. And the whole idea of Greek mythology, I used to love, probably more so than. And I'm not I guess what
Follow.
would you call? Well, I'm not a religious person in any kind of Christian Catholicism, any kind of that kind of religion. I very much believe in myself and the earth and your being, but I've always been fascinated with Greek mythology and Egyptian mythology because I think a lot of it could be, you know, a lot of it may be story or fable or telling of things, but some of it can, you know, be something that resonates as something more true, I think,
I think so.
because, you know, and I remember the very first time watching that Clash of the Titans, I would have been very young, and as silly as it sounds, when you look at all these like structured religions, it actually seemed more realistic as a child that there would be these gods sitting in a room, literally moving people like chess pieces, you know,
Yeah.
and it seemed kind of ridiculous, but it actually seemed more realistic to me than,
And
you
anything.
know, than anything else that I sort of saw. And, you know, and I was obsessed with the whole tragedy and the, you know, like of course like, you know, Cleopatra and Antony and like all of that kind of stuff. I was always very much, you know, and I was a huge Shakespeare reader when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Love that stuff. So yeah, I always kind of, you know, gravitated towards things that were otherworldly, but also not like one being, you know, but told stories of many beings and many transformations and that kind of thing.
Well, I think that's a great thing about Greek mythology, which makes me laugh at Greek mythology a lot too, because their gods and goddesses just tend to be like glorified humans. Like they're
Yeah,
really doing a lot of kind of human things and very mischievous and like troublesome, and they get into so much trouble. And
yeah.
you
And you
know,
have, and if, you know, someone has an affair with such and such, and then they have this child, and
this is soap opera,
yeah,
but
yeah.
that's a way, you know, to identify yourself as a divinity. They're like, you know,
Mm.
the gods do all of this bad stuff, and so are we really that bad if we do all that bad stuff too? Uh,
Yeah.
Not to say that you should authorize that stuff, but I think they had a lot more fun than me.
Yeah, I think one of the things that the key themes that like came out for me was that people are invaluable. You know, we no one is perfect,
That's so
and there and you know, so everybody is invaluable in some way,
yeah,
and you know, and that was the main thing that I think and that resonated with me because it seems it's real,
yeah,
you know, rather than looking at more traditional religions that see, you know, there's this striving for constant perfection and control and, you know, and suppressing and all this kind of thing. Whereas like I felt like those kind of, you know, whether, you know, you view it as a religion or just a mythology, they're still very much um, show that people are infallible and can change and can, you know, ever molding and that we make mistakes,
yeah,
but we can also be redeemed. You know, you can also, you know, it's within you, you know, rather than someone else doing that for you. Like, or, you know, like I think that's why I always had an issue with Catholicism. You know, it was like, if you go and confess your sins, you will be absolved, you know, and this kind of someone else taking that from you. And it should be you, I think, that is fighting that battle within yourself.
yeah. I mean, and you're not going to resolve any shame issues you have by confessing to someone else. If anything, that's going to bring more shame upon you that you have
Mm,
somebody on the outside. I've been a bad person, you know.
mm.
And,
Ah,
and that's part of having this like idealized perfect God watching down on you versus the Greeks who, arguably they were a little too debaucherous and just
yeah. And they had many, you know, and there was a lot of silly and, you know, whatnot. But I think the key stories were
that kind of
valuable.
as far as deities that are the overarching structure of a society, makes everyone able to relate to a deity,
Mm,
and I'm like Aphrodite when she played this little trick, and she was a little sneaky, but
mm.
she's still a goddess.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that. I love that you're able to work, especially these kind of images and fables and things into not only your aesthetics but and also some of the lyrics, whether you know it or not, or you feel like they're coming from somewhere else. Like they very much are a part of it. And I think that's one of the things as well that I love is that you have such a, you know, and that spiritual and the mythology side to you, and that to me is exciting. I love that kind of thing. So it's like the inner nerd kind of comes out, and then it's also um, brought in with this amazing music
Yeah.
and voice, and you're able to, yeah. So I mean, yeah, we know that I like you already, but you know, um, it is. I love that, and I love that, you know, there's someone else who loves that kind of thing and sees the you know. And I mean, when you come in and obviously, you know, playing guitar and singing, when you then get to, like, you know, drums or and bass and things like that, um, how does that kind of work for you? Do you hear that music, or is it something where you get the other players to work to what the sort of lyrics and the original music that you're hearing is, you know?
Yeah. So, the only band that I play guitar in is Black Mare,
Hmm.
based in Black Myth Horseman, but not anymore. Uh,
Hmm.
and then Eyes of Gemini, Jay, with the guitar player, would always start with some riffs, and then
Hmm.
add lyrics and bass to it. So,
Yeah.
um, in Ides and Black Mare, the tradition and the albums that have come out would be that the guitar players usually come in with something. With Black Myth Horseman, there was a couple of songs where I got in a guitar part, but for the most part, that got eliminated by the final recording. So with those bands, it would usually be the guitar players coming with something, and then I'm adding bass, and then the drummer's adding drums, etc., and then vocals are last. With Black Mirror, it was totally different. Black Mirror would always start with me and a guitar part, vocals and guitar, and then for pretty much all of those songs, except I programmed so all of the songs except for I think two, um, Low Crimes and Isolt. Those were done with me recording guitar and vocals, and then I would do the next layer would be drums, and then I
Hmm.
would bass.
Hmm.
Get the band, my bandmates, to play what I had written,
Yeah.
uh, with the exception of Isolt and Low Crimes, which were written with Andrew Pinko on drums.
Yep.
And so those were the only ones that were different. But so I always thought of like Black Mirror as more like a painting, just because I would just add these different layers on top, and sometimes those layers of drums, for instance, would make me go back and change a guitar part a little bit.
Yep.
Um, yeah, um, yeah. Does that explain? Does that answer?
Yeah, yeah. And how I was gonna say, when you are working, like, I mean, with Ides of Gemini, or, you know, and you have, like, how is that dichotomy of, like, the female energy coming in with the male energy, you know?
Yeah. Well, I'm really lucky, I have to say, in that all the guys in Eyes of Gemini and Black Eyed Horsemen, um, they really appreciate um, the female energy as being something different in heavy music
Yep.
than what the majority of heavy music does.
Yep.
And so they always kind of think about me like vocally, like, oh, are we leaving enough room for you, Sarah, vocally, stuff like that. So I would say that it's kind of universal that the people that I tend to work with, the men that I tend to work with musically, they tend to have kind of a chivalrousness about them.
Maybe that's why you're gravitated towards them, you
So probably so.
know?
I'm a fan. I'm old fashioned that way.
Hmm.
I do enjoy traditional roles of like yin and yang and masculine and feminine.
Hmm.
It's something I happen to just align with, you know. And
Yeah.
so I like, at the same time, you know, I have gone through a lot of my careers needing to be like one of the guys, like, you know, like, oh, I can play bass too, and I can play guitar, and I can do all this stuff. And at this point in my life, I'm kind of leaving a lot of that behind as
Yeah.
far as far as needing to prove things.
Yeah.
Um, and I do so many things at this point in my life. I'm more at a state where I'm like, no, I have chivalrous people, men and women, who want to write really beautiful music for me to sing to. And so mostly that's what I've been doing as of
Yeah.
late, um, which I enjoy.
Yeah. I love that you say that you're, you know, that kind of one of the boys thing is kind of something you're leaving behind. I've always found, personally, but also speaking with lots of female musicians, that there's always this very inner, conflict
Yeah,
within a lot of female, musicians and artists and creatives in general, where they, have kind of, they're fighting either against wanting to, be one of the boys, or and prove that, you know, like, I don't want to be, you know, identified as a female. I want to be, you know, and then on the other side of the coin, very much like wanting to embrace, I am female and I've got this unique experience which I want to share. Um, and I personally have always been very much, I'm very much, I am female, and this is my unique experience as a female. Um, I'm not trying to, you know, to join the boys' club, but I also want to. I don't want to take my gender out of it. Whereas I know a lot of women would prefer to, but for me personally, I find it more powerful in accepting that and being like, I am unique and different,
hmm,
and this is the energy that I'm bringing to this,
yeah,
rather than sort of, deflecting that, you know.
yeah.
But I
Um,
do I do think it's an inner conflict that a lot of people have.
oh, absolutely. I mean, I didn't even realize it was for a long time
Mm.
until I really was largely responsible for destroying my first band due to tyranny
Yeah.
of an emperor sense, a very big sense of you do what I say or this band can't exist, you know?
Yeah.
Um, it wasn't, I can't solely take responsibility for it, but I do much respect that that was my operating mode.
Yeah.
And I, I went through life in that way for a long time, not realizing that I was mainly operating from my masculine and not my feminine. Uh,
Yeah.
and I don't know why that is. You know, you could look at a million reasons. Maybe it's just because, you know, that's what society, to get things done in society, you kind of do need to have a little bit of the masculine in you. Uh,
Yeah.
but
And a lot of, I think, a lot of it is as you're growing up as well.
yeah, yeah,
There's that like confronting of that.
into you.
Mm. I was kind of lucky I had a father, um, who made me do, I guess, made me do masculine things, and was very like, Renee can do this. Why
Yeah,
can't she do this?
yeah,
And he would get very angry if someone would say, I remember, because I used to ride motorbikes and, you know, and all that kind of thing. So all the heavy metal boys when I was a young girl, teen,
yeah,
used to love me because, you know, I'd be like riding around in my motorbikes and stuff. And I remember, being at a racetrack, and it was like, professional go-karting or something, you know, with the crazy ones where they do huge things. And I remember being, there was some spot was empty or something, and I remember my father saying, Renee can take that spot.
Yeah.
And someone questioning him and being like, well, she's a girl. She can't take that spot. And
Yeah.
my dad saying, she can ride better than anybody else.
Right.
There's no reason why the fact that she's a girl that she can't do that. So I guess I was lucky in that sense that my dad, I guess he probably wanted a boy, and we never had a boy, and I was the eldest, and so it was like he did all these boy things with me, but it was also very you know, I was also feminine, but I guess I was much more boyish when
Yeah.
I in the beginning. So yeah, I kind of always went into everything being like, I can do, there's no reason why I can't do any of these things.
Yeah.
And I'd get really confronted when someone would say, oh, you can't do that because girls don't do that. And I'd be like, hang on a minute, but I've always done this stuff. What do you mean? You know, and I'd be really confused, like going out into the world and then being kind of questioned as to, that. But I can see, like you said, with the taking on the masculine, because you
Yeah.
do for, I think, especially when you're growing
Yeah.
into who you're going to be, you do take on that masculine role, like to kind of survive and to get through society. But then a part of you, I think, as you get older, then you start to realize that it's not you. The feminine in you is unique
Yeah.
and works for you in a certain way, and that's probably why a lot of the men that you've worked in prefer and love working with your energy,
Yeah.
because it's a different energy than being in a band with a ton of blokes who are just all trying to over each other, like you said, very tyrannical, and fighting for a spot, you know
Yeah.
um
Yeah. Definitely. Yes.
but yeah, it is. But yeah, I think, yeah, it's good that you've been able to draw men in the industry that work well with your energy
Yeah. I
and
feel.
are very accepting of that, and almost drawing from it.
Yeah. I feel blessed. I feel like I've been blessed to just align with harmonious. I want to say we're all builders together, you know,
Yeah,
and sort of harmonious collaborators where all kind of have this shared. I feel like everyone I've ever worked with musically, almost like it's almost like we don't even see masculine and feminine to a large degree.
mm-hmm.
Realize we're in these different bodies, but
Yeah,
ultimately there's always been an undercurrent of every project I've worked in, which is let's wake everyone up. You know, let's wake ourselves up. Let's make something beautiful, something meaningful in this world that has, to a large degree, become a wasteland in the modern day, where there's not a lot of soul
yeah,
in a media that comes out there in the world. And I feel like everyone I've ever worked with has been like, let's put soul back into it. Let's put something back into it. Not to say that that doesn't exist, that it totally
mm.
exists everywhere. But there's more crap out there than there is like,
Yeah,
saturating the world. And
yeah.
it's like
I
there's like when you like a lot of kids these days, like urban kids, they don't even know where tomatoes come from.
Yeah,
They don't actually know like where tomatoes come from. They have no idea like what a farm is or anything. And I think a lot of humans in general, they like as far as music and art, they have been fed only candy, because it sells very easily. So they've been fed like strawberry candy for their whole life. But if you gave them like a real strawberry that was freshly grown from a garden, they would be like, "Oh my God, this is amazing. This is otherworldly. Like what is
yeah,
this?" Like you get like a one-dimensional experience with a strawberry candy, but
mm.
with strawberry, it sort of opens up all these other dimensions. That's how I feel when I eat strawberry candy versus a strawberry.
Yeah, yeah.
It's strawberry. The same with heartfelt, pure music or art, any kind of art that one is creating, whether it's a film, or it's a song, or it's a painting, or it's a video game. Um, I think when there is purity of expression in there that hasn't gone through a commodification process,
Yeah,
I think that's something which provides nourishment to humanity and helps every human who hears it or sees it or experiences it to feel less alone and to feel like, we're all part of this tapestry. You know, this person, uh, what they're expressing is something intangible that I couldn't have maybe expressed on my own, but they're expressing it, and that amplifies the feeling of community of the human experience. You know.
yeah. And I think that's, a huge part about music. And also what I love about the kind of DIY and underground um, music and heavy music and especially all these marvelous like musical acts that are coming out of the heavy scene with female singers and female members, and they're kind of bringing this whole new multi-dimensional aspect to I guess a form of music that was once traditionally very very one or two dimensional and very you know um, and kind of bringing these ideas in, which I guess maybe masculine bands tend to not talk about so much,
Right, right.
and
And
with everything you do, I think there's that, like you said, the connection, and there's an otherworldly meaning that kind of emanates from
yeah,
your music that really brings that connectiveness and makes you, like you said, feel not alone. And I mean that in itself must be something for you as an artist that's really fulfilling, to know that you have people who listen to your music and connect with it and can interpret it in any way they want, um, and feel a part of something,
yeah.
you know?
It's the most gratifying thing I think I could ever do. Is to
Hmm.
the music I make has touched anyone in a way that makes them feel less alone here, because that
Hmm.
seems to be the majority of people, or helps them through grief. You know, a lot of people, the the most people who have reached out who have said that my music affects them are people who are experiencing deep grief,
Hmm.
uh, and loss of a loved one, or a painful experience, maybe near death sort of disease or something they're going through. Uh,
Yeah.
and when people like that reach out and say that the music has helped them through that, if I've ever doubted my purpose, which I haven't, but I also haven't received that much kind of validation on
Hmm.
for doing what I do, because I do delve into such dark issues,
Hmm.
uh, that I don't get a lot of people reaching out to me or giving me feedback about
Hmm.
them. So on the rare occasions that people do reach out, it is absolutely fulfilling. You know,
Hmm.
yeah, I feel like what it is like, I spend time trying to build this well of nourishment for people to come to. And so I do all the building, but then like I walk away and I don't know if anybody's actually getting the nourishment,
Yeah.
and they're drinking from the well.
Yeah.
So when I do hear feedback about, we heard the music and it was so healing or whatever, I'm like, oh, good, you're drinking from the well. The well is being used. Like I
Yeah.
feel great. I'll keep filling the well up.
Yeah. And I've heard like a lot of I've heard a lot of great feedback and comments from males who um, love the music, and I think because there's a different energy to it, like there's still heavy, but there's also this darkness, and like you said, this kind of grief and this kind of things that men typically don't address,
Right, right,
but it's put in a form where they feel comfortable,
right.
um, you know, um,
Opening up.
expressing and opening up and connecting with that. And
Right.
that's something that I really like about, like I said, the surge of having this kind of female energy mixed in with male energy in a lot of this kind of dark, heavy, and like doom and metal music,
Yeah.
is that like it's starting to, maybe it's the shift from the typical male kind of toxicity and men becoming a bit more evolved and starting to address themselves, I guess, as well, you
I
know.
I hope so.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's a positive thing that, people are not only just everybody, but I think it's really cool to see men being really open to these kinds of musical acts, and really just like it's starting to resonate a lot more.
Yeah.
It's not something that's like, tends to draw just female fans anymore, you know.
And I think that's how we feel society in general is through vulnerability.
Hmm.
All understanding that like our power really is our vulnerability. You know?
Yeah, yeah,
So
100%. And that's like where you draw, because you can draw from that and
yeah,
bring out any, especially creatively,
yeah,
and you can get your power and your strength from that.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and I was going to say, are you working on anything else for Black Mare at the moment, or
Black Mare has been put on the back burner, I'm afraid.
sorry?
Been put on the
Sorry.
back burner.
Oh, yeah. What's on the front burner?
There's, a, there's still a lot of ideas. I know there's definitely another album that will be made. Um, but the last few years has been pretty wild internally, um,
Hmm.
but not very wild creatively speaking. There's been
Hmm.
readjustments and rebuilding as far as
Hmm.
my own personal psycho-spiritual foundation goes.
Yeah.
Um, and also, what ended up happening is that Black Horsemen reunited about,
Yeah. Hmm.
and we reunited very quietly.
Yes.
Um, in a new format, actually, since I've become a diva and don't want to play bass anymore.
Hmm.
Um, got a brilliant bass player to play with us, and we basically kind of hung out in the musical cauldron, the alchemical cauldron, for a year, getting just like reacquainted with each other. You know,
Hmm.
it had been a good like 7, 8 years that we hadn't played any music together.
Yeah.
And we had finally decided, okay, like how are we going to make our way back into the world? And we got the opportunity to get to go with Yob, YOB. We say it Yob or YOB? I don't even know.
I say yob, but I just assume I say everything wrong because I'm Australian and we just pronounce things different.
I pronounce everything incorrectly too, but I'm a really big fan of Yob. You know what they
Yeah.
stand for is amazing. So to come back with that was going to be really amazing. But and then we were like, okay, so let's record a demo, and then we'll record an album.
Hmm.
So basically, like the day before the whole COVID shutdown, we recorded what was going to be a demo
Hmm.
for our next album, and then everything got crazy, and one of the bandmates moved away, And I had to put my vocal recording on hold for like 4 months. And then finally, 2 weeks ago, I just actually recorded. And I think because, we've had members move out of town, and also because the recording ended up sounding a lot better than we expected, which is so
Hmm.
the first album we made was supposed to be a demo too.
Yeah.
And then we ended up thinking it sounded so great. We were like, well, let's just make it the album.
The album. Yeah.
I think we're doing the same thing this time, where
Yeah.
album. And then, the shows got canceled, like rescheduled twice.
Yeah. With everybody.
2021. Let's check back in. So yeah, we will have Black Myth Horseman will have an album coming out. And what I figured out also is that, so Black Mare was spawned from the breakup of Black Myth Horseman.
Yeah.
And I did not purposefully do the Black Horse thing.
Yeah.
Horseman. I actually got the name Black Mare from a dear friend of mine at the time, named Maja, who we were really into tarot and I Ching together. And we started out, Black Mare and Isa Gemini started out as a ritual performance for a solstice ritual, a winter solstice ritual.
Yeah.
She said, well, what do you want to be called? For the Black Mare songs I was writing under the name of Freya, who mourned her son Balder for the solstice when the days get shorter and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So she said, what do you want to be called? And I was like, I don't know. She said, well, let's ask the I Ching what you are, like who you are. And so the I Ching said hexagram 2. And hexagram 2 is the mare, or the receptive, dark animal goddess, the earth mother. And she was like, oh, and she was going by the name the White Witch at the time.
Mm-hmm.
She was, well, you're the White Witch. I'm the White Witch. You're the Black Mare. And so that's how she named me, essentially. And then I figured out when Black Myth Horseman got back together, and I was still like playing with ideas for Black Mare, I realized the muse source for those two was too similar, and I can't do them both at the same time.
Yeah.
I have to do one or the other. So I really needed to finish up that phase of Black Myth Horseman before I could do anything with Black Mare.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the same time, Black Mare is very lunar, dark black moon, very dark moon energy. But in the last 3 years, I've also gone through a process of cultivating my solar energy, which ended up out in a new project called Luxury, LVX, which is light, essentially. And so I also needed to complete something with that project before I could go back to Black Mare.
Mm-hmm.
So basically now those two things are completed, both EPs for Luxury and Black Myth Horseman, which will be coming out. I've got to fit. Everything's so crazy. We're trying to figure out what is the ideal way to release things now in this climate.
Yeah. I mean, at first I thought there would be not many releases, but it's actually worked the opposite.
Yeah.
I feel like nearly every week there's an amazing release.
Oh, I know. Yeah, so we're just trying to figure out like what's the best way to release things, and do we want to wait to release things until there's actually potential of playing live to support those things, or do we want to just get going right now? So I'm kind of in the planning stages of those two projects, and then once those are solidified, I'll get back to Black Mare. My plan, which I hopefully will stick to, was to do 3 EPs this year, to finish Black Myth Horseman, Luxury, and the Black Mare.
Yeah.
So that's a plan. But as they say, the gods laugh at your plans.
Yeah. I think everyone's laughing at everyone's plans and our own plans because they're completely out of our hands and out of our control.
I can't plan anything besides this, like, seconds,
Yeah, exactly. It's very like, yeah, it's just completely in that realm of just who knows.
Yeah.
So you were talking earlier about doing art. Is that something you're still doing?
Doing what?
Art?
Oh, well, let's see here. As far as art, most of my art was video and photography.
Mm. I remember, was it Devotee? I think you did for
Oh,
Faux.
Sarah?
Yeah.
Yeah. I did just the editing for that.
Yeah. So I
Yeah,
remember,
what?
I was just going to say, I remember it, and that was a great video.
Thank you. It was fun to edit. Yeah, it was great. Um, I love the song and the video. And that was actually, all the video stuff I did was very dark, very kind of, mm, I don't want to say horror movie, but very dark, very apocalyptic, kind of a bit of a nightmare realm, which is an automatic. There was no plan behind it. It's just going to happen. It's kind of a
Yeah.
world. And then, like I said, over the last 3 years, there's been a very deep um, psychic restructuring of the psycho-spiritual space that I live in. And I definitely got, I would say, I think it's fair to say that I went too far into the abyss.
Mhm.
And in order to survive, I had to learn to cultivate light.
Yeah.
So I had to for a long time um, completely turn away from dark because I didn't want to exist for a little while, A very challenging period in my life where I felt like I was in a void and couldn't connect to anything.
Mm. I think that, I mean, that classic, the words, if you stare too far or too long into the abyss,
Oh,
you
no.
know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It totally, it did that for sure. Um,
Mm.
I can laugh at it now, but
Yeah, at the time it's never funny, but yeah.
but yeah, so I had to take a time out and cultivate life. And so at this point, I don't know. I don't know what the visual art is that I will do. I do sketches in my own sort of journals, but that's nothing I would
Mhm. Do you
something.
think the video side of things and maybe the lighter side of that will come through or be a part of future, like with luxury or with
It's
and
possible.
black cars?
But so what I found now, what's really, I do a lot of experiments and explorations in consciousness.
Hmm.
And what I found now is really exciting to me, which is a way to create on a deep internal level in a yin way, or a feminine way, without actually having to do it. And that is where you come up with a visionary world, which is what I've done for luxury. Um, and well, I've done that for all of I come up with a visionary world, and then find people to sort of help me build that world, right?
Hmm.
Now what I've been experimenting with is completely taking my ego out of it because definitely there was a lot of my ego involved in a lot of my projects in the past and my need to prove that like I can play an instrument, I can sing, I can direct videos, I can design websites, like I can do all this stuff. And at this point I'm like, yeah, I don't like doing a lot of that stuff. I
Yeah.
don't like designing websites. I like coming up with the ideas, but
Hmm.
I don't like the physical legwork involved of, for instance, having to get really technically good at playing guitar and singing at the time, or playing bass and singing. I don't like the sort of constant repetition you have to go through, or the mundane process of all the little tiny details that need to come together for a low budget music video, right?
Hmm.
And so now I'm experimenting with the idea of doing a lot of sitting still and
Yeah.
getting more focused on the world of the creatrix and allowing the people to come into life almost on an automatic level that see eye to eye and just synchronistically bring the vision together that I sort of have in my mind. And so, like for instance, with luxury, which is very much in its foundational stages, um, that very much happened with the first song that I released in the a little over a year ago, which was where I was really good friends with Netta, Muted Fawn at that time,
Hmm.
Agassi, Foie Gras,
Yeah.
and all lived right next to each other. And
Yeah. Yeah. Everyone kind of, all these girls, these amazing girls, seem to all live right near each other at a period of time.
so,
I
yeah,
absolutely, I love Muted Fawn, and yeah, I've known Fo for a very long time, so as
they're,
well.
they're creative powerhouses for sure.
Hmm.
And so like the video for like the first luxury video was like Netta and Iffy going like, oh, we were gonna go to Madonna Inn. Do you want to come? Maybe we'll do a project together. You
Hmm.
know, like, oh yeah, I've never been there. Like, let's go.
I'm
And
dying to go there.
so fun.
Yeah.
No place like it.
Mm.
And so then we just kind of like had fun. We're like on the spot. We didn't have we had a rough idea and we made a video from that. And then like now, I got this roommate who happens to be very spiritual and happens to be a filmmaker. And I played him some of my songs and he was like, oh, well, let me make you a video. And the video happened to be completely in alignment with the luxury identity that I come
Hmm.
so now I'm kind of I I haven't felt the need or the desire to actually uh, do the physical work beyond the visionary space,
Yeah.
and I still feel like you know I don't know if I will. I'll wait to see if that creative fire comes back. Uh,
Yeah.
right now, it's just a lot of it is in my energy goes towards vocals, singing lyrics, and then doing a lot of magical work
Mhm.
with my world of tarot and healing and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. Because you do, I was going to mention, you do a lot of work, with tarot and like spiritual arcana and that kind of stuff. Did you want to talk about that?
If you would like, I mean,
Yeah. I mean, I find it really interesting, and I think it does inform some of your art.
absolutely. I think it's all one thing to me, because it's all. I feel a lot more at home in the world of archetypes and vibration than I do in the human world. For
Hmm.
whatever I've never felt very comfortable or at ease in relating to people. As
Hmm.
one on one, I can. Like, this is great.
Yeah. Yeah.
But relating to people as a whole has always been a little challenging for me. For most of my life, I was pretty shy, and kind of felt like an outsider. And it's only now in this stage of my life where I've developed a way to relate to people, which is very much based on understanding people through archetypes and figuring out a way that I can almost help people.
Hmm.
Uh, and I do understand that every time I help people, they're helping me too.
Yeah. Sort of like feeding back.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so the healing vibrational world that I live in is composed of tarot and Reiki, mediumship, and I Ching for the most part. And so
Hmm.
it's all really figuring out ways to relate our everyday human experience to higher vibrational or lower vibrational realms. There's the
Hmm.
subconscious, which is all this sort of stuff that we come from, and then there's the superconscious, which is one of our divine beings. That is our potentiality, our intentionality. And so I'm really always just wanting to build bridges for myself and for the world at large, in order for us to find more balance and harmony. I think that we need to rid ourselves of the divisions between what I see as the spiritual world, but you can also call it the imaginary world. You can also call it different vibrational realms of experience. Um, and I find peace in transcending the barriers between what could be called an existence of form uh, versus an existence of spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And really, there's no difference, is what I've learned over time. But much of the world would disagree with me.
I love the fireworks in the background. You're talking about a very spiritual, like Zen thing, and then just
I mean, that's kind of like the whole thing. That's what it's all about. Like the whole spiritual thing is centering because you are always surrounded by fireworks, which is
yeah, okay, chaos, I guess.
and I think that you can eliminate the suffering of the drama and have fun with the drama if you're able to find that Zen center and realize that there's no end.
Mhm.
And once you realize that there's no end to experience, fear goes away and then reactivity goes away. And
Yeah,
when reactivity goes away, samsara goes away because you stop repeating the same cycle of behavior.
yeah,
You're not reacting, you know? Um, and then everything just becomes more fun,
yeah,
you know?
yeah, yeah. And I guess it feeds into your musical outlet then as well, being able to express that and bring that part of you out and share that with everyone.
Yeah, and I don't like when I started playing music. You know, I was definitely an egomaniac, and I'm a recovering narcissist. I was like, when I started playing music, I was like, everyone's asleep. I'm gonna wake everybody up, you know. What I didn't realize at that time was that I was also asleep, you know,
Yeah,
and I was really making music to wake myself up, you know.
yeah,
So now I realize it's really egomaniacal to think that there's any goal in healing anyone but yourself, you know. And I think the healing of the world and the uniting of the divisions in the world comes from us all healing ourselves individually. And then we become higher vibrational beings,
yeah,
are able to connect on higher levels and see that we're all just one undulating quantum field of waves versus particle bodies, you know. And so I don't consciously put that sort of try to put that message of like I'm gonna heal the world through my music.
yeah, yeah.
I certainly hope that comes through
I
somehow.
think it's the energy, like the energy of it coming through than
Yeah,
like you being like, heal the world, like, kind of.
it's like we're all like batteries, and so like if I'm the battery and I'm charging my battery with like healing energy, hopefully that's gonna somehow, you know.
Yeah,
Um, yeah.
yeah, I love that. I love the whole idea of the charging and recharging, and then
Yeah, it's been getting really deeply into to energy. Interestingly, because energy was actually the first thing that got me into spirituality. I was basically a kind of an atheist and a nihilist for a long time.
yeah,
When I discovered like the Christian God wouldn't talk to me, I was like, screw everyone then. Like screw this whole.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and then I started to start to understand and be curious about and see that there is in fact energy that you cannot, even if you study science, you cannot deny that there is energy that does
mm,
not, you know. And so it always comes back to energy for me and vibration. I'm a big fan of Tesla. You know, he said that too. You need to if you don't understand anything about the world, you need to understand energy and vibration.
yeah.
So for me, it's rhythm. And that's what everything can be broken down to: energy and vibration, even our stories and our mythologies. There's echoes in our mythologies across time and space, and there's rhythm and the story of humanity. Um, and that just sort of, to me, carries a underlying current of energy which does not die. It just gets recycled and is born in one form or another. That's largely how I've come to understand that there's no such thing as an end.
Yeah.
We're really a beginning.
Yeah. Well, it was funny. I was speaking to a friend couple of days ago, and she was talking about names and what they mean, and you know, that kind of thing. And it's really funny that my name means rebirth.
Oh, it does.
Mm.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
You have to go through a significant death in your lifetime, I would say, with like the health
Yeah.
you've been through and the challenges you've been through.
Yeah. Well, I think it's funny because it relates throughout my entire life. Like you said, I've had many tough things happen throughout life, and then of course all these health things and different. It's almost like like a constant rebirthing or reincarnation sort of thing. So it makes sense. I'm glad I'm not just a flower or something.
You're just like, you just gotta keep, you gotta, I don't know, maybe a phoenix has to find a solar current at some point where
Hmm.
you glide along the current.
Yeah, yeah,
Or experience enough descents into the flames.
yeah. Well, yeah. I think I've learnt so much
Yeah.
through my life, through having adversity and having, you know, so many challenges that like a lot of people haven't, you know, had to have. Like,
Yeah.
and it does. It brings you to a different space, and you start to understand things
Yep.
a lot more, and appreciate things a lot more.
Yeah. You shed illusions, shed things that you just don't really need and that aren't real about you every time. One of those kind of death rebirth experiences.
Yeah. And you know, one actual, I guess it is really funny to say, but my parents didn't have any, they didn't name me that for any specific reason, and they just picked it. You know what I mean? But the funny thing is that I was born 4 months premature.
Oh, nice.
Um, and I fit like just in the palm of the hand. And so I was in an incubator for months, and yeah, my outlook for life, according to the doctors, was 2 weeks.
Oh my God.
And
Really
hey, I'm still here. So
so cool.
yeah, so I guess
But
it's a cycle
yeah,
of some sort.
I just got to give you a heads up. I got to go in about 5 minutes.
Yeah, I was just gonna say we're getting our little warning anyway, so it's a good time anyway to chime out. Um, but I'm very much looking forward to hearing when we do hear it, the new stuff with Luxury and of course Math Horseman, and Black Mare,
Yeah.
and looking forward to when we can see, you know, live performances of
Okay.
that again.
We'll have so much stored energy.
Yeah, you'll be just burst dying to get that out. But it's been absolutely lovely speaking with you. And finally, yeah, like we've connected on words and everywhere else. But yeah, just voice is an amazing thing. And this is one thing I love about technology.
Yeah, this is really wonderful. I'm very grateful that you invited me.
Of course, of course. It's been absolutely, yeah, a pleasure. Um, and I hope you have a good evening and yeah, you don't get blown away by these fireworks.
I'm gonna go watch
Yeah, watch a little bit. They're always good for a little watch.
a
But
little.
yeah, it was lovely to speak to you anyway. All right. Well, good night. Enjoy. Bye.